y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we are going to do my April reading wrap up, and y'all, it's going to be a short one because I have read all of 2 books in the month of April. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so if you've been around for my wrap-up videos, you know it's a little bit more than a wrap-up. We're also going to set up for the month of May, which doesn't normally take us very long. And while I do that, we will talk about our pick that we read for the month of April, which was The Man of the Crowd. Let me go ahead and jump to our April page. So here is The Man of the Crowd. I'll be honest, I just finished it a couple of days ago. I haven't put my thoughts in here yet. I will go ahead and fill in my star rating. We can talk about it in depth a little bit more later. I'm going to give this 4 stars, and we'll talk about that why here in a little bit. So I have read The Girl with All the Gifts, and I have read The Final Empire. So I have started Encyclopedia Fairies. I started it fairly early in the month. And then I have started the sequel to The Final Empire, which is The Will of Ascension. And since they're still ongoing, I've gone full on bullet journal method and just done my little migrady symbols there. The Girl with All the Gifts, I have had this book. It was loaned to me by a former coworker who is a great friend of mine, and we were out a week or 2 ago and I was like, hey, I finally read that book, because she gave this to me pre-pandemic, and then I should have read it when we were all furloughed as event managers, but I couldn't focus on anything while I was furloughed. I was pretty much a slug until I started doing home projects. But I finally read this. I'm going to give you a little bit of synopsis of this, but it's going to be a very vague one because I firmly believe that everyone who reads this book needs to go into it cold. And that's just how I feel about it. So The Girl with All the Gifts is by M.R. Carey. It's a post-apocalyptic novel and set in a world where a fungal infection has turned most of humanity into zombie-like creatures called hungries. The story follows a young girl named Melanie, here on the cover, and her journey alongside a group of survivors to find a cure and to save what's left of humanity. The novel explores themes of loyalty, sacrifice, and what it means to be a human in a world that has lost its humanity. I very much enjoyed this book. I feel like it tackles a lot of questions about humanity and whether humanity needs to be saved. And I started to write my review, and then I decided that anybody and everybody who reads this book needs to go into it with no spoilers. So I stopped because I didn't want y'all to be able to read it. I didn't want to give any spoilers away in my review thing. So I do have to come back in and add sort of my proper review, and I'll do that at another time because I don't want to give it away for anybody who might read it. And it is sci-fi horror, which is not my normal thing. And interestingly enough, the person who loaned it to me normally reads more YA. And when she says YA, she just doesn't like to deep think in her reading in her own words, and this is definitely a deep think book, so it was funny. But we did get to talk about it after I finally, 3 years later, finished reading it. I do need to give it back to her. As you can tell, I still have the physical copy. I do need to give it back to her. There is a second book that came after this one, but it is a prequel. I don't know if you can read them in any order. It's called The Boy on the Bridge. I have it on my to-do. Not sure I want to jump right into it because still thinking about this one. So I did put in some of my favorite quotes. I will come back in and fill in some more thoughts, but again, didn't want to spoil those for y'all. And then I did start Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is my lunchtime book. It lives in my purse. I'm supposed to read it on my lunch breaks because I'm supposed to take lunch breaks. In the words of my therapist, I'm not supposed to take any sad desk lunches, which means I'm supposed to eat lunch away from my desk. And then I'm supposed to do something other than lunch away from my desk. And in April, pretty much none of those things happened. So I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I am in the process of reading it. I have bought this nifty strap to put my annotating things and keep them all in one place with my book. And I've just put it onto the back of my book. I will link this in the description box below if anybody wants it. It's really meant for journaling, but it has my tabs that I like to use. I like these darker colors, as well as some of these post-it notes that I like to use. So I'm not necessarily always writing in the book. These are see-through, and this is a permanent marker to write on these particular post-it notes because they're not normal post-it notes. Ooh, look, let me fix that later. We'll just stick it right there for now. So Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, it's not a long book, y'all. It really shouldn't take me this long to read. It's been a very, very hectic month, and yeah, I've been having sad desk lunches at work, which my therapist has not been too thrilled about. So there's that. And then I have started, like I said, The Well of Ascension, because I did read Brandon Sanderson's The Final Empire. So we will jump over here to The Final Empire. I am, as a fantasy fan, late to the Brandon Sanderson phenomenon. I never read Wheel of Time, despite the fact that it is my brother's favorite fantasy series. And he's been harping on it for years. I just never read it. I did watch the first season of the television show. Still didn't necessarily make me want to read it. Because Brandon Sanderson, of course, finished Wheel of Time for Robert Jordan when he died. It was handpicked to do that. During the rise of Brandon Sanderson, those were the years, y'all, where I just wasn't doing a lot of reading necessarily for pleasure. You know, I was a single parent with 2 very small kids and lots of activities and trying to hold down a job, raise 2 kids. In the middle of it, I went back to school to get my degree. So full-time job, full-time school, full-time kids. I stopped reading. So there was a lot of years there where all the new releases and everything that came out, despite being a fantasy fan, I just missed all of it. So if you guys see me go back and start picking up things like Robin Hobb, which I've started to do, and Brandon Sanderson, which I have now done, that's why. Is I just, you know, there was a whole period of my life there where I just missed all of that. The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn series, is my first Brandon Sanderson read, and I can now say that I get it. I know there's some people that are not fans of Sanderson. I get that too, for multiple reasons. For me, and like I wrote here, this is my first read by Brandon Sanderson, and I am not disappointed. The big thing for me in reading, and I realize this is my first book, his world building is extraordinary. Is his writing extraordinary? Not necessarily. It's pretty run-of-the-mill. It's pretty mainstream. There's nothing amazing about it necessarily in just terms of structure and sentence structure, that sort of thing. But it's engaging because his world building is so great. I mean, he almost takes some cues in naming from Tolkien, because I've always joked around about Tolkien as much as I appreciate Tolkien and his gift to fantasy. You know, when it comes to naming things like the Lone Mountain, you know, it's like, oh, okay, it's by itself and it's out there. Sure, that's what it would be named. In this book, we have the Lord Ruler. So let me give you the quick synopsis that I wrote. It's not quite as vague as the one that I wrote for The Girl with All the Gifts, because I feel like if you're a fantasy fan, you probably beat me to The Final Empire years ago. But The Final Empire is a fantasy novel set in a world ruled by the immortal emperor, the Lord Ruler, who maintains his power through the use of powerful magic. The story follows a group of Ska rebels who seek to overthrow the emperor and end his tyrannical reign. Led by a charismatic thief and powerful allomancer, we'll talk about that magic later, the rebels must navigate the dangerous political landscape of the empire while also battling the emperor's powerful minions. The novel is full of action, suspense, and intricate world building, making it a must-read for fans of the genre, and I do think it is a must-read, but that's my personal opinion. So back to the allomancer, or this particular character who has this gift of allomancy, which is the magic that he uses. In addition to the world building, this magic system is so thought out. It is so intricate, and magic systems are tricky. You know, it's one of the things about fantasy worlds that have magic systems in them is, you know, people tend to forget when they're writing that magic has consequences, or that it's not perfect, or that it can't solve all of the world's problems. And Sanderson definitely recognizes all of that in his magic system. It has flaws, and he knows where those flaws are, but it also has room for growth. Like, it's not it has room to grow, which I'm finding out in Well of Ascension as it continues to become more. So I'm just going to leave it there. Let y'all know that I'm sold. I'm in this Henderson family 100% on board. I haven't read enough yet, but I think I can see why everyone was so excited when he started dropping his secret projects for 2023. Haven't read enough to go all in and say, yeah, I would have backed that blindly. I'd have, but don't know for sure. Those are the 2 books that I read in April. Y'all, I was on such a roll that I thought I was actually going to run out of space in this journal. I might still, because I was up to, 5 or 6 books a month, which is great for me, building my habit back up, and then just hitting a work month that just was like a train wreck, and I read 2 books. So, but there we go. The Girl with All the Gifts. Should have read it 3 years ago when it was given to me. Super glad that I read it now. Brandon Sanderson's The Final Empire, which I just gave that 5 stars. I did not mean to give that 5 stars. It's 4 for me. I'll fix that later. I put it 4 other places that I have rated it. So let's just go ahead and talk about that for a minute. So I do keep a story graph for those of you who use Storygraph. I try to keep it updated as much as I can. There's an app. There's also a website for Storygraph. I'll link that down below so that y'all can find me if you want to follow or friend me on Storygraph. And then years ago, and I think I've mentioned this before, I abandoned Goodreads. Well, I'm back on. So I'm under Beth, Dots and Beyond. Again, I'll link it below, but I am only on for the books that I've started in 23 forward. I didn't reactivate my old account. I just didn't want to try to flesh out the 4 or 5 years that I've been off. So I started over. So I do have a Goodreads. Many of you have asked. It is down below, and I will link it for you, but it is just the reads that started in 2023. I'm also starting to sort of tap into doing some book reviews. I've done one. I did it for If We Were Villains, which I reviewed last month. Y'all know I loved that book. It is on my website, so I will try to stick a few more book reviews. I'm not going to review every single book I read on my website, but I'll link that down below for you as well. All right, let's go ahead and set up May. This should not take very long, and I have forgotten to grab my washi tape. Hang on just a second.
One eternity later.
Okay, I'm back. Still haven't found the stripy washi tape. I didn't run out of it. I've just stuck it somewhere, and I don't know where. It's, it's a mystery, along with a whole lot of other things in my life. Like right now, I've lost the scissors that live on my desk. Where did they go? I don't have a clue. I have looked everywhere. They're just a normal black-handled pair of scissors, but I can't find them. I don't know where they are. They are not under. I have asked the cats. They won't tell me. I just thought maybe they had absconded with them. I don't know where they went. I probably carried them off somewhere and just forgot wherever it was that I took them. Stick that on there to hold that down a little bit better. And grab a stencil. Okay, so The Man of the Crowd. I don't remember ever reading The Man of the Crowd before. You can see where literary scholars kind of will give Poe a little nod to the beginnings of detective stories. Sort of for it. It tells the story. We have an unnamed narrator. We very often in Poe have an unnamed narrator who's in a coffee shop, and he sees this stranger in a crowd and decides to follow this guy, which is, creepy enough. It's even creepier that this guy never really notices that he's being followed. And then we have, Poe always has a way of giving us some sort of moral ambiguity. And that comes into play in this story because this person, not the person doing the following, the person being followed, we find out through the course of the following is not necessarily the best human on the planet. I don't know, he's an old man. And this other guy, I say guy, we always assume that Poe's protagonists are male. I actually wrote down some notes, and I've discovered that I can't actually do this and read my notes at the same time. So hang on a second, let me look at my notes. Whatever. I said he becomes fascinated with a mysterious old man he sees while he's sitting in a London coffee house. I said that. We got that in. The man walks aimlessly through the crowd the crowded streets for hours on end, and the narrator follows him trying to discern his motivations. Despite his best efforts, the narrator never learns anything concrete about the man, and the story ends with a sense of unease and mystery. You know, what it really all is a meditation on the nature of human connection and the difficulty of understanding other people, and how much can you really understand a person by following them through the streets. I don't know the answer to that, really. I like to people watch. I've learned a lot about people from people watching. When you work in the event industry, you get to do a lot of people watching, and you get to see people do a lot of really crazy things, and y'all have no idea. Unless you've also worked in events or hospitality, which I've done both, you just have no idea what people will do when you get them away from their homes and put them in a hotel for a conference. When they think nobody's looking or nobody's going to remember who they are the next day. People just, they forget themselves. They really do. And not that I'm guilty of doing it too, because, you know, I leave home from time to time as well. But this narrator tries to analyze this individual and is unsuccessful. His efforts are fruitless, and that leaves him with this sense of frustration and despair, not necessarily about himself, but about humanity, and that the human experience is fundamentally unknowable. I don't know. I like this story just because of its ambiguity. And again, I don't ever really remember reading it before. I probably need to read it again because I'm not as familiar with it as I am, say, The Cask of Amontillado or some of the others that we have read. Getting to know another side of Poe with this particular story. And the one that I'm setting up now, I have also never read. I told y'all we've got a mix in here of some that I've read and some that I have not read. I am making a lot of noise. I am so sorry. Anyway, we are going to read The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. It's another one that I had to look up a synopsis for. I kind of knew The Man of the Crowd, what it was about, just because I've been in literary circles all my life. This one, I was like, what is this story about? Why do I not know anything about this story? So I'm going to stop writing here for a minute. The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar is about a man who is hypnotized on his deathbed, and his body remains in a state of suspended animation even after he dies. Much like Frankenstein, the story explores the limits of science and the consequences of pushing beyond them. That is The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. And you gotta wonder, how much do we explore the limits of science in a story that is 3,671 words long? Because that is how long it is. It is not a long one at all. So that's where I will write my thoughts about it. Here we will put what I am reading for May. If I read anything for May. May's another rough month for me, y'all. I have back to back things happening. It is okay. I like to be busy, but a lot of the things that I'm working on, when it comes to events, I'm very much a control freak, and the particular events that I'm working on definitively rely on me having to get information and things from other people, and I don't like their timelines. When other people have no sense of urgency and I want something to be done already, it's not a pretty picture. It doesn't work well out for anybody, because I don't wait well when I give people deadlines and they don't stick to them, and then I'm trying to do agendas and all of that sort of thing, and it's just, I'm a control freak when it comes to events. Okay, I'm gonna stick this little old book cover in here for the Facts of M. Valdemar. Grab a dot marker, make some dots. Look, I did those all different sizes. Put in our star. This stencil, I think, came in the very first journal I ever bought off of Amazon. It was a cheap, I think I got 2 of them for $7 when I decided I wanted to do the bullet journal method. The paper was very thin, I mean 90, 100 GSM, something like that, but I bought them because when I decided to bullet journal, I went in with just the method and no art, no creativity. I had watched and was already watching a lot of creators but I wanted to know if the method worked for me first before I started throwing in all of the art and everything else, which I would highly recommend, by the way, if you're thinking about bullet journaling. I know this is a reading journal video, but okay. So The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar was published in 1910. It is 3,671 words long. Like most of Poe, it is a horror, it is a short story, and of course it is fiction. So there are those. I don't know if y'all have realized I cannot write in my natural cursive when a book is straight up and down. I have to do this or it will not look pretty at all. So I am currently reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and Wheel of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. There we go. Here's my dashboard for May. This is my little have I read every day. Erase those. I'll erase the rest of that later. And then of course I have space for my reads. Now back here I am still keeping track of first lines. First line of The Girl with All the Gifts was Her Name is Melanie. I started Emily Wilde, so first line of that is Shadow is not at all happy with me. The Final Empire, Ash fell from the sky. The Well of Ascension, the army crept like a dark stain across the horizon. And back here, let's see, I have added Girl with All the Gifts to my index as well as Final Empire. We have I added them? I think I have added the two of them here. I have read every day. Even if it's just an audiobook for 5 minutes in the car, I've said it before, I've read every day. And I'm still on that kick. So that alone I'm proud for. And yes, even with reading every day, I still only read 2 books in April. Release radar, I haven't added anything to this, I don't think, since last month. I think these are still the same books that are on there. I haven't added anything on my backlist to this. Poe picks. Let's do The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. Book haul. I've been buying books a lot. So I bought Nettle and Bone by T. Kim Fisher, Atomic Habits, and Getting Things Done. Surprisingly, I don't have either one of those, so now I do. I also bought a book called Witchery, which I don't have nearby, by J. Diaz. I have more to add to this, but I'm actually going to do a book haul. So any of you who follow me on Instagram, you may have seen my stories over the weekend for Independent Booksellers Day on Saturday. Here in Little Rock, our independent booksellers had a book crawl, and I went to all 5 of our independent booksellers here in Little Rock, and I just didn't feel like I could go into any of these stores and not leave without a book. And so I bought books in every store. So there are 3 of them that predominantly sell new works. There's 2 of them that are predominantly used bookstores. I did discover we have a brand new used bookstore in town, which is great because one of our used bookstores left town. The other used bookstore that we have here that I haven't patroned in quite some time because it used to be just a disaster zone. I mean, boxes and boxes of books on the floor. You couldn't find anything. Has a new owner, and she has been organizing and cleaning. She has digitized some things so you can find some books. She can look for them for you. She knows where things are. The store used to be cash only, and now you can pay with card. So it has come into the 21st century. And so it was great to find that out as well. So I feel like I can go back to that used bookstore now. All in all, the book crawl was great, and now I need to do a book crawl haul, y'all, which is just fun rhyming for me. I'm so sorry. Book of the month, those will launch tomorrow. If I edit this tonight, we're not going to know what my May book of the month pick was. If I edit this tomorrow, I'll pop it in up here somewhere and let y'all know what my May book of the month pick is. Series, I've added Mistborn to the series list, so it is here. I do have one struggle for 2023 in that there is another Shades of Magic book coming out in October. That's what I need to add to my, I don't know what it's called though, so we'll have that for next month. So for anticipated releases, I did find out V.E. Schwab's, and I found that out on my book crawl, has written a 4th book for Shades of Magic. And I don't know if it's kind of be like Robin Hobb, where it's the first of another trilogy that it's just going to be in the same world. I haven't looked enough about it, but there's another Shades of Magic book coming. If you didn't know that, you're welcome. And then I didn't DNF anything, so we are all caught up there. Again, skipping this because I'm not ready to start filling in faves. And then here is chapter 1. So all I need to do is add in my May sticker. If I can get it off today, I can find my easy tab. Looks like as good a spot as any. Yep, sure enough. Good as all. All right. If you guys are going to be reading The Facts of Case in Valdemar with me, let me know down in the comments below. I'm trying to post more book content or bookish content over on Instagram, like my book crawl. I'm trying to do more stories too, which you probably noticed over the weekend if you're already following me over there. If you liked this quick April wrap up and May setup, please go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.